Hello everyone, let's take a look what happened in this game and what we can learn from it. So, we start with a very usual opening. Black played a high extension d10 and white decides to approach as well in black's formation. And black plays Keima and white decides to Tenuki to play this carry. And then white chooses this evergreen Joseki, which is happening almost all the time in these days. What happens often as well is that black only connects and then descends and then white extends here, but I guess this we have reviewed already before. In this case, black decided to make this exchange, which is actually locally bad, but it makes black's shape stronger towards the center. So this is also a possibility, but I probably wouldn't extend in this direction right away. This is a nice move locally on the top side, but the top side is not really urgent in this case. To me, black has basically only two options in this Fuseki because the top side is not interesting. The right side is not interesting either. Therefore, to me, black should somehow approach the start point at the bottom. And approaching the start point at the bottom would make sense at f3 definitely, but the left side looks also fine because the extension from d10 makes sense as well. So if something like this happens, let's say, this makes perfect sense. And if black makes this exchange first and then makes some extension at the bottom, I can also accept that definitely. So these two choices are definitely much better than just playing here. As I said, playing here is definitely not bad locally, but globally this point is not interesting yet. So it makes for white very comfortable to play this move. But at least black gets to play here. So it's like black made the exchange at c6 for f3 and then played h17. So h17 is not perfect here, but at least black played c6. But white gets the opportunity to extend at the bottom side, which is, let's say, the last large place on the board, and now black needs to start defending somehow. So black decided to kick and jump, which is a possibility, but normally black would like to defend the corner as well. But if black plays another kick now, it's actually possible that white will not extend at this time. If black plays here, then it's of course fine, because black basically creates a Miai on two pincers, so white probably needs to extend either here or here. White cannot get both. So actually these two structures can get eventually very heavy. So actually this black's defense, even though it looks very ugly, it was actually pretty useful. So actually to me this is my very favorite sequence for black. The problem is that in this case when black plays this order of the kicks, now actually white is able to tenuki. White is able to make these exchanges first, for example, and then play here. So, and now black is becoming surrounded everywhere. So this wouldn't be so great result for black. Therefore, I would recommend to actually switch the order. And first we play this exchange, and then we play this one, and then jump. This order is the official variation of Joseki, or black can also just defend like this with the Keima. That's also a possibility. But if black plays here and then jumps, black actually gets very similar position as before. The problem is that this stone at r5 is first of all much lighter, and second of all is it has an access to the corner. So white must be very happy that white can get some shape in the corner, and eventually it can be actually very interesting for white to descend here as well. So actually black's base is becoming much smaller and white is becoming kind of settled in the corner. So this is much worse than the variation I showed. But white choose to build the bottom side instead in this game, and black decides to reduce here, and this is definitely a possibility, even though it's a bit ambitious. I can definitely understand this shoulder hit. Shoulder hit as a reducing move is always fine. If black would like to avoid any complications, then black would be able to play this jump as well, because this is making the left side larger and the bottom side smaller. So most likely white would probably answer somehow like this. I can definitely imagine that white would also like to make the bottom side larger. However, black can still reduce white like this and making bigger himself at the same time. So this would be pretty fine for black as well, because after this move, white has the possibility to use the wall on the right side I mean this structure, so black should be ready to be separated somehow. Most likely white will not answer here or here or here, which are the usual moves how to answer the shoulder hit. So black needs to be ready to deal with this. And usually what happens in this case is that black makes these exchanges first, and most likely in this case black cannot block, because if white starts surrounding black like this, black probably doesn't have big chances to live at the bottom. So black would probably have to jump out like this from the bottom side, but I think this would be pretty acceptable for black. So, but black needs to be ready to play something like this. Because if black plays here, now white is becoming stronger on the outside, and black starts jumping out immediately, but white is already strong on the left. So basically when white plays here, black has two things to fix, and these are these two. So at least black should have made this exchange first and then jump out. This would be still acceptable, but it's a pity that black didn't jump farther, because I think c4 was definitely possible instead of c5. So at this point, no matter what happens, black needs to play here, and it's true that white will get all of these moves in center and then probably cap black. But I think now with the jump at g6, black has much better chances to survive at the bottom. So so I think black has to play like this no matter what, because black made these exchanges first to make white stick heavy, which is a good idea. The problem is if black blocks here, white will most likely at some point not answer. Most likely if white plays immediately here, the three stones on the left side are becoming very heavy, and it's not so easy to save them. So that's what white should have done. So first white actually did this in the game, because white was most likely worried that black would play here, and this would make first of all some base for black, and also this stick would really become heavy now. So like this, black would still have a chance to get some compensation for the lost three stones on the left side. But if white makes these exchanges first, white gets some base at the bottom, black is not alive either, and now white is able to play here. So probably at this point I wouldn't even try to save those stones. Most likely I would just like to sacrifice them like this, let's say, and then just make some shape in this area, and this would be still somehow acceptable for black. However, in the game, black decided to save these stones, and white is happy. White can even just let them live on the left side, and black lives in very painful way. And what's the worst is that this move, which was originally creating very nice territory on the left side for black, now it's actually completely useless. And actually in the game black tried to save it, and that's definitely not a good idea. Probably black just should have done this exchange and then connect under and finish the idea. The result is terrible, but at least this stone shouldn't be saved anymore. I mean, this stone is gone. It's not useful to use it for anything. So in the game, actually, the result became even worse, that actually black even lost these three stones anyway, and already at this point, white is actually catching up very fast. Because as usual, this teaching game is played with 50 points handicap for black, but white deleted already at least half, but probably even more. So we can actually see how heavy these three stones are. So actually, black did really a lot of mistakes on the left side here, and probably the last move was not really a good choice as well, because as I said, this stone should be gone. I mean, it's not really necessary to save it. Black should finally play something like this, because this is a classic attack and defense spot. It's making black's group stronger, and it's attacking attacking white at the same time. For white is also valuable to descend here, as I have said, so black is for sure forced to jump out, and we have some running fight here in the game. And this kind of peep is actually from a category of useless peeps. Usually we would like to play peeps which can give us something, but this peep is only making white stronger. So I'm not sure if this peep is useful either, but at least it's more useful than n8. So n8 is definitely doesn't really work well in the game. So in the game, white managed to close the right side, and also the group in the center is much more healthy than it used to be. At least black created some formation in this area, so black is alive in the center. These three stones are useless, but at least black managed to make some shape with the group at the bottom. This move is probably no overplay. I think black should have just have run out because this move basically creates a Miai between this vital point and then jumping out somehow on the side. So it's not easy to choose where to play for white. So black should have just jumped. Always when we have some running fight is like this in the center, we should always try to be ahead of the opponent. And so this is exactly the case when black should have tried this. So white closed black, so black needs to answer to not be killed locally, and in the end anyway the stone at Q11 dies. So actually at this point white's territory on the right side is also much bigger than it should have been. And at this point black should have at least try to keep the top side compact and close together. Like this actually black can still create some nice territory there. But when black plays here and white reduces the top, actually white is actually coming very close to delete the 50 points deficit. So in the game white got a very solid shape at the top as well. Probably black should have played on this vital point. White probably protects the cut in some flexible way, and black at least get the under connection. But when white gets to play here, then black actually played very nice vital point here, but still black's territory at the top is very small. I mean, black closed only like 10 points there, and that's not really big enough. So at this point, the game actually becomes very close. However, from this point on, we will see that actually black, even though black's first half of the gameplay was not so great, actually in the second half of the game, black actually did really well. So first of all, black played this, which is very important to remember that we should always try to get the center moves as soon as possible. And here it was actually big danger that white would get to play at T2. So actually black actually played t3 at a very good timing. So we can see black basically plays all of the big moves on the side, which are always bigger than some central moves. So another big move on the side which black got was f18. This connection was not necessary. I think black should have just Tenuki here. There is no cut available for white, so black should, for example, play here, which is very big move, just to connect the stone at J2. So the end game proceeds, and as I said, black is not basically making any mistake. And what's actually very interesting that after black gets to play this move, there is something in the corner. So what actually white didn't realize before, and white should have probably earlier played this move, most likely at this point, because when black plays this in center, it costs some points. Because if white doesn't answer this move, then there can be something definitely. Most likely this Atari cannot be solved. It will be always some kind of seki, for example, like this. So white would actually lose a lot of points there, and the game would be still winnable for black, because like this white loses 10 points of territory in the corner, or maybe a bit more. So then it would make the game super close. In the game, nothing much interesting happened anymore. So in the end, the final result was that, if I remember correctly, white won by something like a bit more than 10 points, which is so actually after white catched up, which was somewhere after destroying the top side, white didn't have to show that much in the end game, but it was also black's black actually also had black's play was also the reason that the game was quite close, because black did really well in the second half. So actually in this game we saw a lot of black's mistakes on the left side, we saw a lot of black's mistakes at the bottom side, and eventually black also missed the opportunity to close some territory at the top side. So instead of black's territory at the top, white actually closed some central territory which he really didn't have a right for. Also white's right side, thanks to capturing King Q11 was way bigger than it should have been. So there were a lot of places in the first half of the game where we can definitely learn from Black's mistakes, but in the second half of the game, the end game was kind of an example how end game should have been played. If we omit B12, which was basically like the only obvious mistake where Black shouldn't have played, Black's improvement in end game is actually clearly visible in this game. So that's probably the end of this review, and thank you for watching and see you next time.